Geoff Hoon was part of the Labour Party for quite an amount of time, almost 2 decades, and I would say was part of the most destructive Labour Party we've ever had, which was Tony Blair's government. And it's strange when you watch Geoff Hoon in the modern day espouse his views, because you get a feel for what was happening behind the scenes during Tony Blair's tenure, when no one was really aware of all of this stuff. But it really gives you an ideological insight into how that government thought, and Mr. Hoon's thoughts on our flag are very strange.
What the Prime Minister was clearly trying to do is to draw a distinction between using a flag in a proper way to support this country and using a flag to intimidate people. Now, no one can object to the use of the Union flag. I am British.
Or the Cross of St George?
Well, that's what I want to come to, Nigel. I am British. That's my flag, and I don't believe that it's possible to challenge anyone for using that. What I'm not so sure about is the Cross of St George. The Cross of St George is an English flag. Now, when England play football, perfectly right that should be displayed. When England play rugby, why are people displaying the Cross of St George and claiming that is somehow patriotic?
Because of the... I mean, you're obviously in the Emily Thornberry camp. You know, you look down your nose at people that fly...
On the contrary, I don't look down my nose at anybody.
Well, she did 10 years ago,
well,
and it didn't go down very well.
Nigel, that isn't fair. I do not look down my nose at anyone. Right. What I'm trying to make is a distinction between the flag of a British citizen, which is a Union flag, and the Cross of St George, which is a flag of England.
And what's wrong
now, that's fine.
And what's wrong with Englishness?
Well, because, and there's nothing wrong with Englishness, but what is wrong is English nationalism. We are a united country.
I see. So
I do not believe that it is necessary to emphasise nationalism.
Jeff. You're part of a government that gave vent to Scottish nationalism. You were part of a government that gave vent to Welsh nationalism, part of a government that compromised with Irish nationalism, but we can't be English nationalists.
No, we can be English, and we can be proud of being England when England are playing football or England are playing rugby, but I don't believe that it's appropriate to put up flags of the Cross of St George in substitution for the flag that we owe our allegiance to, which is the Union flag, because we are British.
Well, I feel that I can be English and British. I see no contradiction. I
see no contradiction, but the reality is people are putting up the Cross of St George rather than the Union flag.
I think
that is the worry.
Well, I think both are going up, to be fair. But I understand. One, it started off with the Cross of St George more. I do have a Cross of St George waistcoat, which I do wear to sporting occasions.
And in the first part of that, I thought that was the funniest. The Prime Minister was trying to draw a distinction from using a flag in a proper way. Well, the proper way to use a flag is to fly it somewhere. And that may have been a bad choice of words, but, you know, in trying to tell people how and where and what you're supposed to be doing with your flag is highly insulting. You know, it's all right for you to use a flag at a sporting event. That part is all right. We don't mind you being patriotic when England's playing on the telly and you're buying your trays of Carlsberg lager from the supermarket and buying kebabs on a night time. We're totally down with all of that. That's fine. Just don't actually get really patriotic, because that's going to annoy us no end, without any doubt there. And the point that Nigel made, I thought, was very pertinent. You know, that Labour government that Mr. Hoon was part of seemed like it was all in with Scottish nationalism, and it's fine to have an SNP. And when you actually put this point to someone on the left, they don't know how to respond. So when you say to somebody on the left, and you actually directly say, why is Scotland allowed to have a Scottish national party and the English can't have a national party? They come up with the sentence, well, they probably deserve it. And that's the best I've had. I've asked quite a few people about this specific point, and they never, ever have an answer. You know, the recent flag thing that's happening, I think where this all comes from is patriotism, and it is a showing of your love for your country. But really, how else can people respond at the minute? They feel like they're completely disconnected from their government. They feel like free speech is being eroded and they can't say what they want to say. They feel like people are getting locked up, and indeed people are getting locked up for free speech. There's 30 arrests made every day in the United Kingdom related to free speech offences, and that's a very, very worrying trend. But when you've got free speech being eroded, when you've got this demographic change that's happening in our country, when you've got our Prime Minister calling people plastic patriots for flying a flag, what else can the response be? What else can people do? They're just expressing their displeasure, like they were at that march at the weekend. They're just expressing their displeasure. They're flying a flag to show, look, I'm not down with what's going on, and I want Britain to stay Britain. I want England to stay England. This is really straightforward stuff. And of course, the final point on nationalism. Yes, we can't have people talking of English nationalism. No, because that's a very dangerous thing. We need to not talk about that. Scotland fine, Wales fine, Ireland fine, but not here in England. We don't have nationalism here in England. Well, I'm an English nationalist, and I believe in England. I believe in the nation state. I believe in law and order and protecting our borders. I believe in Britishness. And Mr. Hoon doesn't think that I'm allowed to have those beliefs. It's as straightforward as that. Mr. Hoon is part of the 20th century multiculturalism project, the failed project. And everything that Mr. Hoon and the Blair government done, the Reform Party are going to attempt to unwind when they're in power in a few years' time. And more than anything else, Mr. Hoon was part of the destruction of England, handing over obscene powers to a Supreme Court that sits above Parliament. Gordon Brown giving away control of interest rates to the Bank of England. The Blair government handing over control of our budgets to the OBR. This stuff, this deep state stuff that goes on, needs to be broken up. And only then will Mr. Hoon's and Mr. Blair's and the whole Labour government from that time's project finally come to an end. And I think Mr. Hoon sees the writing on the wall here. This English nationalism, which is on the rise, is the only antidote to what's going on at the moment, in my opinion. Thanks very much for your time.